They were playing the Bulls, and they were dominant. They were ahead by double digits in the third quarter, and then it all flipped and fell apart for the Celtics. But it was DeMar DeRozan and the Bulls who came storming back in the fourth quarter to get a big win. They only have one loss on the season.
And by the way, this is what Ben Simmons was required to do as a young player. See DeMar DeRozan. Now, here's a guy who I've called a mid-range marvel forever and was a 25-point scorer in Toronto without even shooting threes. And then he started to shoot threes off the dribble. The maturation of his game, Jacoby, is they can throw it into Vucevic now, who played really well, kick it out to DeMar, and he can step in and knock down threes. You got LaVine still slashing, one of the best athletes in the game. You got Lonzo playing on-ball D, throwing lobs and being consistent. He's an improved three-point shooter. Like, I really like what the Bulls did this offseason. And like I tell you, it looks so very much different around LaVine that they got a living, breathing general manager. Like, LaVine has been a great player. Now it's great to see him surrounded by some guys that can go.
Absolutely, and this was a great performance by the Bulls, but the elephant in the room is that this was an absolute collapse by the Celtics, and Marcus Smart, never one to sort of not express his opinion, shared his opinion about the game in the post-game press conference.
I mean, I would just like to play basketball. You know, every team knows we're trying to go to Jason and Jalen, and every team is programmed and studied to stop Jason and Jalen. And I think everybody's scouting report is make those guys try to pass the ball. They don't want to pass the ball. And that's something that they're going to learn. They're still learning, you know, and we're proud of the progress they're making, but they're going to have to make another step and find ways to not only create for themselves, but create for others on this team, to open up the court for them later down in the game where they don't have to always take those tough shots.
Let me translate. Pass me the ball, Jason and Jalen. That's what he said. It was articulate. It was long. There's X's and O's and balls, but he was like, y'all need to pass the ball. What do you think about Marcus Smart sharing his opinion after the game?
So this is why I love team sports and encourage young people to play, just because of the life lessons you get from it. And this one is about sacrifice. And when you look at the identity of Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, they're different in a lot of ways. Marcus Smart is defensive oriented. So is Jaylen Brown, who's matured his offensive game to be an elite scorer. An elite scorer. Like I was at the Garden and just watched him get 48 this season. And we've seen Jason Tatum elevate himself into being a top tier, maybe top 10, 12 player, right? And so what ends up happening is Marcus Smart at the core is going to play tough defense, move the ball, and dive on the floor for loose balls and all of that stuff. But the glory usually goes to the guys, as you noticed, that get the headlines that put up the 35 points, right? Mm-hmm. And so what will help them is something that they should have done in the offseason. You got to make the game easier for your best players. And here's how you do it. In particular, Marcus Smart can contribute to this as well. They need somebody in the backcourt that can play, make, and make the game easier for those guys. If they're not going to do that, then they need to get somebody else up front so Jaylen Brown don't have to play minutes at the 4 against guys that are 40 pounds heavier than he is. That's what really will fix their problems. And then lastly, of course, like all young scorers, they're going to need to find ways to get their teammates involved. But when I'm getting buckets so very easy and I'm kicking it out a couple of times and you missing, then the guy going to keep shooting. Don't look too deep into this. Young, great players have to learn how to get their teammates involved, and that was just Marcus Smart venting his frustration after they lost to the Wizards recently, and now they're losing to the Bulls. Two teams on paper, you'll say, that's not the Bucks, that's not the Heat, that's not the Nets. So that's when you now have these self-evaluating conversations like Marcus Smart just did at the podium.
As we headed into the season, I would put the Celtics and the Bulls sort of like on the same tier in the Eastern Conference. But from what we've seen through 6 or 7 games, the Bulls have lost 1 game and 1 game only, and the Celtics have only won 2. Jalen, another team that had a tough loss last night, the Portland Trail Blazers. Yeah, they lost the 76ers. You might,
what we needed, getting to the paint and creating plays. I thought we did that tonight.
So Philadelphia now has 3 straight wins, but health concerns are remaining. They're without Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, and Danny Green. They're all on the mend. Welcoming in our senior writer and reporter, Ramona Shelvard. Embiid was out for a rest day, but how is his knee progressing, Ramona?
Really well. He's going to play tomorrow against Chicago. Danny Green's going to be out because he had a hamstring injury suffered in that game. But Joel Embiid is progressing really well with his knee. And also that rest day gave him a chance to get in the lab with his personal trainer, Drew Hanlon, and go over some areas where he thinks he can improve his game and help the Sixers play the way they need to without Ben Simmons, without Tobias Harris, without Danny Green now. But he's going to play against Chicago.
Joel in, Danny Green out. You mentioned it, Ben Simmons. We can't have a 76ers segment without asking you about Ben Simmons. So what's the latest on his possible return to Philadelphia?
Well, Malika, there's been frustration mounting, according to people close to the situation, that Ben has not been accepting any of the help that the team has offered him in terms of helping him with his mental readiness. And he has been working with mental health professionals through the Players Association, but thus far I'm told he hasn't really kept the team in the loop on that. And there is frustration mounting there that they want to know, okay, you're out due to mental, you need to get mentally ready to play. But so far he's just done individual work with some of their position coaches. He hasn't been back in with the team, and he's not providing the team with any updates on what he's doing to get back and get himself back with the team and participating in team activities.
Interesting. So it doesn't really seem like there's a firm timeline yet.
There's no timeline.
No timeline on when he could be coming back. Philly hosts the Bulls tomorrow night. Thank you so much, Ramona.
Thanks,
Please
Micah.
don't go too far. As for the